Greetings, fellow scribes! Welcome back to the archive. This week, I conclude my series talking about Robert E. Howard's Conan, Adventures in an Age Undreamed of, by talking about building your characters. Well, character creation and touching a little bit on advancement. I'm kind of going to touch on some of the more interesting options that they have for character creation as well. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as we talk about your beginning steps into a time of high adventure. So the first thing I'm going to say about character creation in this is it starts early. Page 12 is where the chapter 4 character creation starts. Right after a little forward and the universal intro, what is a role-playing game stuff. The first step of character creation is you select your homeland. You have two ways to do this. You can just go, I pick my homeland, or you can roll randomly. Now, your homeland gives a number of things with it. First, of course, it gives the sort of identity and cultural aspects of where your character is going to come from. An Aquilonian is going to be very different from a Cimmerian, who's going to be very different from a Stygian, and that sort of thing. Then it gives you a talent. Now, there are a number of talents, and they're kind of... they don't really do a lot, per se. Like, for example, Desert Born. You're born in a desert, and let's see, the number of successes required for any survival test you attempt is reduced by 1 if you're in a desert. And this can reduce the difficulty to a simple, so just needing any successes. Or Honest Corruption. From a land of corrupt merchants and honest thieves. 6 cents about those who are likely to betray you. When interacting with an NPC for the first time, you can make a thievery or counsel test to gain a general feel for the trustworthiness of the NPC. I think one of the more useful ones is Cosmopolitan. If you engage with an NPC who's also cosmopolitan, you don't have to speak their language because you've picked up enough from dozens of languages, a word here, a phrase there, that you're able to communicate with them. Kind of thing. And then, of course, it gives you what your native language is. Now, one interesting thing is that most places have their own native language. You know, Hyrcania, they speak Hyrcanian. Cimmeria, they speak Cimmerian. But a number of places... let's see, 1, 2, 3. There are 3 regions, 3 homelands that speak Aquilonian. So, Aquilonian could actually be passed off as a sort of common tongue, at least in that region. After you've determined your homeland, you come to your attributes. Now, it starts with all of your attributes are at 7. With the Game Master's permission, you can reduce one attribute or two attributes to 6 to raise the same number to 8. That's a with the GM's permission thing, though. In other words, you're gonna have to convince a jealous and angry god to let you do it. Not always gonna happen. And then you pick 2 attribute sets. They have things like strong and resolute, fast and fit, and charismatic. And what these do is they have 2 mandatory attributes and 2 optional attributes. Out of these that you select, you must rank the 2 sets of mandatory attributes, with one attribute being your strongest, one attribute being your weakest from those. The strongest attribute gets a +3, the weakest attribute gets a +1, and the other 2 attributes get a +2. Then you pick one of the optional attributes from each of your 2 picks. And that attribute gets a +1 to it. Now, there are certain min-maxy things you can do. Let's say you take the option to raise an attribute to 8 by lowering another attribute to 6. You take strong and resolute, which has as its mandatory attributes brawn and willpower. And you decide you're going to rank willpower as your strongest, giving that a +3. And then you take, amusingly here, socially adept, which has awareness and personality as its strongest. So you bump up personality as your weakest. So that you've got a +3 to willpower, a +1 to personality, and a +2 to brawn and awareness. Now, socially adept has willpower as one of its optional attributes. So, you've taken strong and resolute, so you're going to take intelligence to bump that up. Most likely, maybe you set agility down to 6. But you've bumped up intelligence here. But you take the willpower choice from your optional attributes. That stacks with the +3. So you're already at a 12 in willpower. Now, there is a special thing to consider. There's something called ancient bloodline. It's basically that you are obviously descended from one of the great fallen civilizations, like, Atlantis. With this talent, anytime you fail to make a personality test of any kind, you must immediately pay the Game Master 1 Doom point, and will gain an additional D20, adding its result to the test. The test is otherwise resolved normally. But if you've already spent Doom, then player must pay the Doom point, but you don't get another D20. And thing is, if your attribute hits 13 or 14, you automatically must take the Ancient Bloodline talent. You get it for free for basically investing and manipulating your stats in such a way. Note that, yes, if you've spent Doom to get an additional D20 already, you still have to give the GM the Doom, but you don't get any benefit from it if you take the Ancient Bloodline talent. Alright, step 3 is your cast. And, well, it's just what it says. Are you a crafter? Are you an escaped serf slave? Are you a herder? Part of the priesthood? A warrior? And these give you talents relating to your ability, like, crafter is one. And essentially, one relates to what your job is, one relates to sort of your social standing. Like, if you are a subject within your lord's domain, you get a reduction on your upkeep, the amount of funds you have to keep going each month to keep you functioning and living comfortably. A vagabond is you're a wanderer, stuff like that. And that's basically one aspect that it gives. It gives you 2 talents. It gives you a skill. For example, a crafter gets the craft skill. And then it gives you your social standing. And then it gives you a role for your story. So, let's just take a quick thing and take a look at what happens from your stories. The stories give you a trait. So when you make that roll, like, if you're a crafter, you might get Exalted Mark, Gifted Mark, the Quiet Hours of Peace, and stuff like that as your story. But those give you a trait, something that sort of describes what your character is like. And those traits don't have any sort of game mechanics associated with them. They're sort of a role-playing guide. Like, on the crafter, if you got Exalted Mark, you're suspicious because, your mark has been added to the Roll of Honor in your local town. And it was like, quite naive when you were invested, but now you've had time to ponder the matter, you think you know who was behind it, type thing. So you're suspicious because you basically got political boost that you shouldn't have gotten, type thing. That's one of the examples. Then you pick your archetype. Now, archetypes are what we think of as classes. Archer, barbarian, noble warrior, scholar, etc., etc. And those give you a career skill that you get +2 to your skill focus and +2 to your expertise in. They give you a specific talent related to your career. Usually the first talent in the career tree. In the career skills tree. You get 4 +1 skills and +1 skill expertise determined by the archetype. You get 2 skills with a +1 and to expertise and focus. And your starting equipment pack. So, for example, let's say you're a noble warrior. Your career skill gives you society. Your talent is a modicum of comfort, which basically means you know people and you can make your life easier when you're traveling somewhere. So your upkeep gets reduced by 1. Your mandatory skills, i.e. the skills you get automatically at +1 each, are acrobatics, animal handling, parry, and resistance. And your elective skills, which you get +1 to 2 of these, are melee, persuade, or ranged weapons. And then you start with a suit of heavy armor and choice of shield, 2 weapons of choice, suits of fine and traveling clothes, and a warhorse with light barding. And yes, you can demand people address you as sir or similar term. And you can be present in the army of your king at any time without pay. And that is what's a noble warrior. Step 6 is your nature. And again, you pick from a list or roll from a list. And each nature gives a +1 to a single attribute, +1 skill, expertise, and skill focus to 3 skills, +1 expertise and focus to 2 skills from a list, and then 1 talent related to any of the above skills. So, let me see. Let's say my nature is stoic. That's a +1 to my willpower. So, hey, this noble warrior? Yeah, he's stoic with already a 12 willpower. Now he has a 13 willpower. He gets a +1 skill and focus to discipline, lore, and resistance. And he gets +1 expertise to 2 of counsel, healing, or parry. Counsel is basically advising people. It's also psychiatric medicine, kind of, sort of. So he might take that, but he would definitely take parry. So he's a little bit better at defense. And then he gets a talent associated with those. Well, he'd probably take a talent associated with parry. Just because we've kind of built him as a sort of warrior type. Alright, so after that you come to step 7, education. And this gets kind of interesting. When you take education, it has a number of factors with it. But, like everything, it has a mandatory skills that give a +1 expertise and focus to 3 skills. +1 expertise and focus to 2 elective skills. A talent related to the elective skills, or to any of the above skills. And some of them offer you a piece of equipment. Actually, most of them offer you a piece of equipment. But let's see. Options are things like against your parents' wishes, apprentice abroad, educated on the battlefield, or a traditional education. So let's go ahead and see. We'll go with a traditional education. And it gives you, as an example, +1 expertise and +1 focus to animal handling, craft, and your character's career skill. So with our noble warrior, that's society. Your elective skills. Any 2 of the following: melee, parry, or a random career skill. Basically, you roll on the archetype table and you give yourself the career skill of that career as an option. But, for our noble warrior example, we're going to take melee and parry. And then 1 talent with any of the above skills. Well, let's see. He's got a talent relating to society already. He's got a talent relating to parry. So he might as well take a talent relating to melee. And then he gets a heavy cape. He gets one of the following: a heavy cape, crafting tools, or a melee weapon. So this could be a 3rd melee weapon to the 2 he already has, or a cool-looking heavy cape that gives +1 armor to his torso and legs. Then you come to step 8, your war story. These are things like you're dispossessed, you gained and lost a great treasure, you survived a duel, you survived witchcraft or sorcery. And what these do is these give you +1 expertise and focus to 2 skills. So our noble warrior will say he survived a duel. So he's going to get a +1 to parry and resistance. And then we come to step 9, finishing touches. He gets he gets either 2 attributes at +1 or 1 attribute at +2. If an attribute is increased to 13 or 14, your character has the ancient bloodline talent described on page 19. You cannot raise an attribute above 14. Then you get 3 points of skills. You can either spread these across 3 separate skills, you can throw them all into 1 skill, or you can do any combination of the 2. And then you get 1 more talent of your choice to any skill you have. Maybe our warrior. Let me just take a quick flip. And let's see. He's a noble warrior. He already has a modicum of comfort. Let's see. We'll give him a reputation. You have gained something of a reputation and are often recognized by friends and foes alike. Each rank of reputation increases your renown by 1, and renown gives you bonuses for downtime and carousing. Alright, and at that point, we finished building our character. It's just the working out the fine details, telling our GM what he looks like, or she looks like, and all that fun stuff. But there's more to a game than just character creation. Because our characters don't stop developing as soon as we've started playing them. No, things change, they evolve, they get better. So how does this system handle that? And frankly, this XP system is fairly simple and straightforward. So, first off, there is no hard and fast rules other than for a 4-hour session, you should look at anywhere from 100 to 300 experience points. Now, I kind of think the numbers, using these large 100-point numbers are kind of high, and you could actually divide everything by 100, but that's just me. Because literally nothing uses 50s or anything like that. Attribute improvement is equal to 100 times the new characteristic. So, raising Brawn from 7 to 8 costs 800 experience points. Skill improvement, when increasing a skill, that costs 200 experience points times the rank. Let's see. Yep, increasing skill, the player must decide whether they're increasing the skill's expertise or focus. And then you pay 200 times the new skill or rank. Then acquiring an attribute, a talent. The first talent in the talent tree is 200 XP. And then, based on where it is in the talent tree, determines how many XP it spends. Each one from the first it is costs 200 XP. So, the first talent after the first talent costs 200. If there's one right after that one in that same little diagonal or arrowed section, that one costs 400. And training and skills focus does actually reduce the talents, cost of talents. Cost to acquire talents within a particular talent tree is reduced by 25 for each level of focus training the character has with the skill in the talent tree. And that is everything on character creation. Next week, I'm going to start series talking about, the new-ish Warhammer 40k RPG, Wrath and Glory. I'm going to be giving this the full overview treatment as opposed to the first impressions that I did earlier this week. So until then, I'd like you all to remember to have fun and keep gaming.